What up, AP Human Geography people? Let's learn all about agriculture. How to do food. Food's pretty delicious. Usually this is a great lesson to have with Mr. Brown. Always things to eat. Things are good. Let's check it out. How to grow and manage food. So, come on, gotta click this button. Alright, here's a tractor doing the whole farming thing. And then I usually do subsistence farming, but when I do, it's wet rice dominant. Yeah, we're gonna see a lot of that stuff today. And then here's some people planting wet rice. Rice is the most common grain in the world. A lot of people in Asia eat rice. And then here's just all kinds of delicious foods. Usually I would call out kids, be like, "What kind of food do you want to eat on this picture?" And yeah, it's pretty great. Okay, so let's talk about how humans do food. Well, we domesticated plants and animals around 10,000 years ago. Before 10,000 years ago, humans were just hunting all the time, and basically our entire diet was meat-based. But in the last 10,000 years, the human body has adapted to eating both meats and plants. We eat pretty much everything. And around the same time of 10,000 years ago, we developed this system called irrigation, where humans are altering the natural water systems of planet Earth to move water around to aid in agriculture or other purposes, but almost all the time it's freaking agriculture. And yeah, this is something that you should get in your notes too. The first agricultural revolution, also sometimes called the Neolithic Revolution, is the invention of farming. So yeah, it's the same thing as the original domestication of plants and animals. And yeah, what are some domesticated animals? Well, it's all the animals that are more or less under human control. So I'm talking about dogs, cats, horses. Yeah, I've heard there are bears. A couple bears are domesticated. Usually, like, kids start shouting out stuff. You can't domesticate a giraffe. And I mean, to a degree, animals in zoos are domesticated. But traditionally, when you think of domesticated animals, they're the animals you'd find on like Old MacDonald's farm. What animals have never been domesticated? What's an animal that I've never seen even in a circus or a zoo? Well, I mean, like dinosaurs. They're not around, but animals currently still in the world today. I know there was this whole thing about could you ride a zebra, and I remember reading you can't ride a zebra. Zebras just don't like humans. And then plants, well, just all kinds of plants are domesticated, but of course the big ones, wheat, rice, corn, and potatoes. So those are the primary food crops, but we eat all the stuff. So, oh yeah, and let me zoom in on this. I want you kids to know roughly where the first agriculture started in the world, and let's see the commonalities here. So if we zoom in on this, I think we zoom in on in the next click, actually. Yeah, there we go. In the 10,000 years ago, human societies kind of simultaneously developed agricultural societies in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots on planet Earth. And here in modern Mexico, people there figured out how to grow corn. People here in South America figured out how to grow potatoes. People in West Africa figured out how to grow yams. People in the Nile River in Mesopotamia, they had kind of a very similar diet. They both figured out how to grow wheat. The Indus River, they figured out how to grow like a crappier kind of rice. The Ganges Delta, they figured out how to grow a better kind of rice. And East Asia, originally they had maybe one of the worst kind of rice, but eventually they get the other better kind of rice. So Asia is rice, the Middle East is wheat, Africa is yams, and here we got corn, here we got potatoes. So that's where all of our favorite foods came from. Ba-bam. Okay, so when Columbus discovered the New World in 1492, a very important event happened in the world of agriculture for human geography. This event is called the Columbian Exchange, because for all of human history, potatoes and corn could only be found in the Americas. And controversial, they're in the same kind of sense, rice and wheat could only be found in the old side of the world. So what started based off of Christopher Columbus's journey was this huge change in food crops, and especially South America's potato. The potato is a pretty magical crop, kids. It can grow in like really extreme conditions. It can grow in really cold weather, really high altitudes. So once potatoes got to like parts of Russia and Ireland and Asia, they were like, wow, we can actually use this land for farming. And honestly, the same thing. Like in North and South America, they never had cows or chickens or horses. And as soon as Columbus brought this stuff over, it dramatically transformed the way they did agriculture in this side of the world too. So huge, huge, huge interchanging of foods and crops. Yeah, I want you guys to have a general idea of what some of the original American foods were and the original Old World foods were, and I'll zoom in on these slides and tell you about it, I'm sure. So, yep, there's Christopher Columbus. A lot of people say he was a douchebag, but one thing, he made the world a more delicious place. All right, and here's kind of how so much of the exchanges were happening in Christopher Columbus's time, but let's look at it in picture form. So, here in the New World, think about a lot of our favorite Thanksgiving foods, okay? Turkey, pumpkin, sweet potatoes, peanuts, potatoes too. Those all started in North and South America. And then also think about a lot of traditional Latino foods. A lot of stuff involving tomatoes, peppers, corn, beans. All that started here in the New World. And the New World stuff, I'm going to argue, had a lot more flavor going on. Like, we had chocolate and vanilla. Come on, we're pretty amazing. The Old World, on the other hand, they had basically all the animals that humans love to eat, with the exception of the turkey. They also had a lot more fruits than we had in the New World. So, yeah, you can judge which side of the world you'd prefer to go back to in a time machine. And yep, here's just no more picture examples of all the foods and animals that were changing places during the 1500s and onwards. Okay, so New World or Old World food. Let me go through this really quick. Bananas, Old World. Old World had a lot more fruits. Peanuts, New World. Peppers, New World. Vanilla, New World. Peaches, pretty sure Old World. Olives, Old World. That's like the Greeks' favorite thing. Pineapple, New World. The more you know. Corn, New World, no doubt. Turkey, New World. Onions, pretty sure these were Old World. Alright, avocados, New World. Oh man, kids, let me tell you, I couldn't live without avocados. They're absolutely my favorite thing in the freaking world. Cows, Old World for sure. Turkey, New World. Just had Thanksgiving. Turkeys are amazing. Pigs, Old World. And then grapes, Old World for sure. That's another big thing in like Greece. Oranges, Old World for sure. I think those came out of Asia, actually. Tomatoes, New World. And potatoes, New World. So the Americas. All right. So I've already told you about the first agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago. But what happened about 200 years ago was something called the second agricultural revolution. And with this revolution, it was really humans taking the work of farming away from pack animals and human beings and putting so much of the heavy lifting on farming into fancy machines. And the second agricultural revolution, yeah, they're saying it started in the 1600s. I think it really got going in the 1800s. But it started in Europe and then spread to America and then really the rest of the world. And it's just using fancy machines to help humans do farming. And yeah, I got this in the red right here, the commercialization of agriculture. And so this just 200 years ago, farming got way easier, okay? Because before the second agricultural revolution, 95% of people on planet Earth were full-time farmers. But once we make all these fancy machines and equipment to help people farm, there's a lot less human labor needed on the farm. And usually on this slide, I like to ask the class, like, how many of you have actually farmed in your life? And usually it's not a lot of kids. Usually you get a couple who are like, I farmed one time. Well, I mean, the way we originally set up schooling hours and why we gave summer breaks was because kids needed to go back home and help the farms 200 years ago. But not so much anymore. Food is way, way, way more readily available. Okay, and then crop rotation. This is something that you'll learn about in the key issues, but I'm going to hit it again right here. Crop rotation was also something that came out of the second agricultural revolution, and crop rotation is really, really smart. And let me explain the strategy for you in case if you ever decide to have a garden of your own someday. Human beings more than 200 years ago were generally pretty dumb, and they would plant the same crop in the same dirt year after year after year. And maybe the first year, you grow your corn or your potatoes and they grow really well. But then the second year, they'll not be as good. And the third year, they won't be as good. And eventually, you try to plant your crops in that dirt, and the dirt just does nothing for it. And the crops refuse to grow. Well, of course, early humans blamed it on religious reasons. But now we understand that the dirt has to have certain nutrients in it to best grow certain crops. And what they figured out 200 years ago is if you rotate which kinds of plants you grow in the dirt, especially if you have one of those rotations be a turnip for some reason, like turnips are like magical plants, I guess, they will regenerate the nutrients in the soil and make it so that the soil is really, really good at growing the crop later. So usually they've got this 4-crop rotation. I think it's like wheat, clover, turnips, and something else. I don't remember. But this concept is really, really smart. Today we use a lot of synthetic soils, so maybe you won't really use this today, but it definitely made agriculture way, way, way better 200 years ago and helped humans eat more. Eating. I'm a fan. All right, so that's the crop rotation image right there. And then here's how crop rotation would work. So like every season or every year, you would just switch out which crops are growing. And yep, crop rotation guide. Great. And then plan it out, grow some crops, grow them in the soil, live your life. Okay, so there are really multiple climates on planet Earth, as you're very well aware. And the wet parts of the Earth and the dry parts of the Earth usually aren't very suited for agriculture. Okay, because if it's too dry, if it's a desert like Las Vegas, you try to put stuff in the ground and it generally doesn't grow. Also, if your area of planet Earth is just super duper duper wet all the time, and you're just, it rains literally every day, you're going to eventually wash away the top layer of soil, and the plant will never get stable enough to grow. And generally, if you're super duper north on planet Earth, it's just so cold all year round. And then if you're in Antarctica, well, nothing grows in Antarctica because it's also just too cold. So planet Earth is pretty good for growing stuff, but not the whole planet is that great. And some geographers really mapped it out, and we found out that 40% of Earth's land is suitable for farming. So that's a pretty good number to get in your head, and we are currently using 29% of it. So if you ever decide to become a neo-Malthusian, and you think that one day humans are going to run out of the ability to grow food for everybody, well, know that we're using 75% of Earth's farmland for farming. The issue is quite a lot of this land that could be good farmland is actually being inhabited by people in cities. So, we're currently using 29%, but maybe we've only got 5% unused good farmland left on planet Earth. But kids, I wouldn't freak out too fast, because over the course of this unit, I'm going to teach you that food on planet Earth is looking A-OK. No one will starve. People do starve, but anyway, we'll get there. All right, so here's the driest parts of planet Earth. Of course, you've got us right here in the Mojave Desert region. The top parts of the Andes Mountains are pretty dry. The Sahara Desert, basically the entire Middle East. The Gobi Desert, Pakistan, deserts around here, the Australian outback, the Namibia Desert. So these are just the big deserts on planet Earth, terrible for growing stuff. And then the wet areas of planet Earth, it's basically all along the equator. This is just super duper rainforesty kind of places. And yes, we can grow some stuff in rainforest climates, but for the most part, it's a challenge because it rains every darn day. All right, and then here's the Inherent Land Quality Index. I usually like students to make a little observation of this. So the more, The more red, soil performance, soil resilience. So you would want green. You would want green and orange. Green, orange, and the blues. But yeah, if it's too high and too hot, and the performance, yeah, soil performance low. So you would ideally want yellow, blue, or green. And if you'll notice, a whole lot of green here in the United States, a whole lot of green in Europe. There's maybe some green in Asia, but honestly, not a lot of green in Africa. Argentina, you're looking great. Argentina, I don't think you really grow that much. So maybe there is just an inherent advantage for the Western world in that it has just some of the best farmland in the world. And definitely a disadvantage for the Middle East, a disadvantage for Africa and for Brazil, because it's just not as ideal for growing food. All right. And actually, yeah, look at the places in white. If it's white, it's just totally worthless. So much of Russia here and so much of Canada, all of Greenland is basically terrible farmland. All right. And then arable land use per population. So Oceania, this is kind of all the island countries in the world. They have a lot of land left that they could potentially grow food on. That's kind of cool. But Asia is just basically maxed out, and understandable because Asia has so many people. But North America, yeah, looks like we've got land to spare. So here in the United States, we can have more farmers and grow more food without any problems at all. Okay, so now what regions of the world have the best suitable farmland? Oh yeah, I just talked about this. So yeah, it definitely looks like the Western world has just won the farmland game. East Asia's doing pretty great. Parts of Latin America, I don't think these are really tapped into that much yet. But it looks like developing Asia is just not very good for farming. The Middle East, I mean, they're doing well from oil revenues. The former Soviet Union, not a lot of great farmland there. Sorry, guys. So the more developed countries in the world have better farmland. And I think that's just an important argument you can make in future FRQs and on future concepts in this course, just to simply know that if you're winning in agriculture, then you can focus on other elements of your society and your economy and just rise the ranks on planet Earth. So yes, I'm going to definitely argue there is a connection between wealth and agricultural land, but maybe that connection isn't really shown as much in South America, because this is some pretty amazing farmland here, and I don't know if it's utilized as much as it could be. All right, so let's look at these two charts. So more developed countries, culture, and environment. So the production of fruits and vegetables in the world, China is producing 1 out of every 3 fruits and vegetables on planet Earth. Holy cow. India is producing about 10%, and we produce 5%. So the United States, we have less than 5% of, do we have less than 5% of the people on planet Earth? 300. No, we have about 5% of the people on planet Earth. Okay, so yeah, it makes sense that we grow 5% of the world's fruits and vegetables. But yeah, China, they're growing so much food. It's crazy. Production of meat in the world. China's producing almost 1/3 of all the world's meat. We're producing 15%. So we're making triple the meat that we would comparatively. And then Brazil's also making a bunch of meat. I think recently Brazil surpassed us in cow production, actually. So, but anyway, let's just look at this. So, are more developed countries generally making more food? China is about half and half. Brazil is okay. But it definitely does seem like the vast majority of countries on this list are Western countries. But yeah, no, Iran and Russia. So there does seem to be a little bit of a correlation between the more developed you are, the more fruits and vegetables and meat you make. And then culture, well, the production of meat would make sense a lot more in China, the USA, and Brazil, just because our cultures are, well, China's just so many people. And the USA and Brazil, they're very, meat-centric cultures. God, I love Brazilian steakhouses. I'll eat it there all the time. And then referring back to the environments, are any of these countries exceptionally dry or exceptionally wet? Not really. Okay? None of those countries really show up on these lists because they just don't have the farmland to really utilize. All right, I'll save that for the next video. Okay, peace out.